What's happening, guys? So today I want to talk to you guys about SSDs. A lot has changed in recent years, and it's not as simple as just picking the fastest one or the highest capacity drive that will fit in your budget. There's different form factors, interfaces, memory technology. Quite frankly, there's a lot of shit going on that you need to be aware of, that you need to know about. I get a lot of questions about, oh, will this drive work? Will this be fast enough? And all that. And so I just want to take a little bit of time to clear up some of the confusion regarding that. So I want to start out by talking about the different form factors available. There are two main form factors available to the consumer today, and that would be your average typical 2.5-inch drive as well as an M.2. You've also got PCI-e cards where they just slot into the PCI slot. You've also got U.2 drives, but we're not really going to talk about those too much today. 2.5-inch drives, they're typically SATA drives. However, you can also get some that will function at higher speeds and will require a different connection, but more on that later. For M.2, you can have both PCI drives as well as SATA drives. So with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit about the memory technology that's actually driving these SSDs. It's actually storing your information. So you have the older, I guess, slower memory speeds, like something like flash memory or NAND memory. Then you've also got newer memory technologies such as NVMe and 3D XPoint. So depending on what kind of memory that is being used and the technology that's there will depend on what your interface should be for optimal performance. So dealing with the interface, you've got two on the consumer side. You've really got SATA and PCI, or PCI-e. And so those two will differ predominantly in the amount of bandwidth that they afford. SATA will be through your chipset and will provide a maximum of 6 gigabits per second, whereas PCI is going to be directly to the board, so you'll have lower latency as well as an increased bandwidth all the way up to 32 gigabits per second. There are also less popular interfaces. You've got the U.2, however that also uses PCIe to pass through, so it's just a different plug. It's just a different connection for that. The interface remains the same. You've also got SATA Express. Now, SATA Express is this really weird bastard kind of connection. It started to get a little popular about 2 or 3 generations ago, but it's really fallen off in terms of popularity, and it's really kind of been outpaced and replaced by M.2 connections in particular. So it has a maximum connection speed of 16 gigabytes per second, and it also uses PCIe for the interface. However, that you really shouldn't be concerned with that. I don't see it staying around very long, if it's even around now. With that in mind, there's a couple more questions, and so the main thing is that if you're going to be using one of these new memories, NVMe or 3D XPoint, you will definitely want to make sure that your M.2 drive or your U.2 drive is functioning and does have the lanes available. On mainstream boards especially, there is a serious problem with if you're using a single graphics card on some platforms, or definitely if you're using 2 graphics cards, you can run out of lanes. And in that case, these faster drives will not be connected through PCI. They'll actually go through the SATA, the SATA controller on the board, which will limit your total speed to 6 gigabits per second, which will definitely handicap these drives. However, if you're just using what is known as a SATA drive, or if you're using a drive that uses these older memory technologies or isn't as fast of a read and write, I believe the cap for 6 gigabits is something like 750 megabytes per second. So if you're using a drive underneath that specification, then you'll be fine going through the SATA chipset. You won't suffer any loss of performance. Now, that said, there's a common misconception with M.2 drives that they're all going to work at PCIe speeds. That's not true. M.2 is simply a form factor, and you can get drives that will function just fine going through the SATA controller in the M.2 form factor. And in a lot of cases, this could be really nice, especially for small form factor builds where you don't want to deal with those extra wires and cables in your build. Other than that, there's really not too much to look out for. Just make sure that your motherboard has the lanes if you are going to be using an SSD that will be utilizing those extra PCI lanes, so a U.2 or an M.2 or a PCIe slot-in card. And then other than that, just look at your SSDs and look at the specs. If you're performing under 750 megabytes per second, or megabits per second, megabytes per second, then you're going to be fine running through SATA, so don't sweat it too much. When installing M.2 drives, do make sure that if your motherboard has more than one slot, that it is in the slot that will offer it PCI lane connectivity, if it's a PCI speed ready, I guess you would call it, drive. Otherwise, it doesn't matter which slot it goes in, and you should be good to go. So I hope this was informative. I hope this cleared up some of the confusion. Have a great day. Hey guys, just wanted to share that we do now actually have a channel Discord. I'll post an invite link in the description down below. Feel free to join. You'll be able to talk with me as well as other guys that are helping out the channel, as well as other guys that are watching our videos. Feel free to talk about the videos, make new suggestions, talk about hardware, show off your builds, whatever you feel like talking about. I bet we have a channel for it. So I hope to see you there. Thanks again, guys.